This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production.
Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed, everyone. We are so happy you are here listening, and we have a story for you, a story of courage, strength, resilience. We are here with Jolene, and she has a story that she's finally ready to share. We're so grateful that she has chosen us as her vessel to share her message of listening to your gut when things are off. They are off, and that you always have the choice to put yourself first, even though it may not be easy. So Jolene, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Yes, we're so happy you're here. And it takes courage and strength to leave a relationship, right? But it also takes courage and strength to share your story and to dive into the details of things that are hurtful or maybe hard to remember and to go there. And so we're grateful that you're willing to do that too, because you're going to set a lot of people free doing that.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I hope so. I hope so.
Yes. Yeah. It's so just to kind of get into your story, going back to where this relationship started, can you kind of paint that picture for us?
Yes. So I'm going to go way back to when I was 15 years old. I met this really cute boy. I was in 9th grade. He was in 10th grade. We met in high school, and I just thought he was just amazing. Like, he was really cute. He had this truck. He would pick me up. Like, I was excited about him, I feel like. And it was really my first experience of, I would say, love, like in quotations, more freedom. And I just fell hard, and it was exciting, I think, at first, at 15. Like, who knows what anything is at 15. But I was excited about him, and we just started dating and continued there, and it just kind of evolved, and it just never really stopped, and it probably should have, but we just continued. And I feel like from the beginning there were a lot of red flags that I didn't want to see, ignored, because I had this big picture of like this Romeo and Juliet, like, remember 1998? That was big, like
Leonardo
Titanic,
DiCaprio.
I know, like, yeah. So like, I just was in love with this idea of love. I think my parents were high school sweethearts, so I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm going to meet you just like my parents did in 9th and 10th grade. Like, this is going to be me too. But there were a lot of red flags. He was a pathological liar, and I didn't know that until things kind of progressed. He had a history of suicide attempts. Again, I wasn't around during that time. I didn't really know what the situation was, but I had heard that from him or his family about that as well. He was always in fights with his parents, kicked out, numerous arrests, just like things you don't do as a 10th grade boy. But he was like this badass boy, and I was just like in love with this idea. He got in a lot of fights again at school, at home, and it was just, again, all these red flags that I should have seen, or somebody should have seen, but we just continued and progressed and never broke up in high school.
I think of too, like the forbidden love, like the Romeo and Juliet, like you said, or like
the bad boy.
I'm going to be the exception with this bad boy type of thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I feel like I always felt like his mother, like maybe it's the firstborn in me, like I need to take care of him and fix him. Because that's what we grow up as little girls, like, oh, he can be this bad boy, but he'll meet a woman he really loves, and then he'll change. And I don't know why, if that was the reason, but I just felt like I'll take care of you. I'll come under my wing. I'll be the one to help you through things. And that was not okay at 15 years old.
So this was when you were 15. He had suicide attempts when he was young. So clearly had been struggling for a while. This is high school. So then what? What happens during high school? Because this is early high school, but you stayed together.
So this is early high school. I mean, he was one of those that he would tell you something, and it was so believable that you almost believed it. But then if you questioned it, he would spin you around, and then you thought, well, I'm the crazy one. Like, why would I think this was unreal or untruthful? And now I know that's called gaslighting. So that's where we started, the beginning of gaslighting. I remember he told me that he didn't know how to read. Well, I would have loved to be a teacher back then. So I'm like, I'll teach you how to read. Like, he sat there and pretended to go through a book, and he knew how to read. One time he told me, just thinking of the gaslighting, he told me that he had done so many drugs that the drugs had stuck on his spine or something and caused seizures. well, they didn't have Google back then. Like, I didn't know if that was true or not. So I don't know if he had a real seizure in my parents' house or if it was just a fake seizure. My parents called the police, the ambulance came and took him away, whatever. And later he told me that I had shoved the paramedic out of the way. I'm like, I never did that. And he spun it around so hard that I'm like, well, maybe I did. Like, maybe I was in such a crazy stage that maybe I did do that. Like, I never did that. But
It sounds so manipulative.
Very, very.
Questions everything that you know about who you are as a person too.
Yeah. So that was my first, I guess, experience with gaslighting in the beginning of our relationship. He started to change me as we were going through and getting more serious. Then he didn't like my clothing style. So then we would go shopping together and, oh, look at this. And I changed my style. And, I don't like you with makeup. So I stopped wearing makeup. And I love makeup. So it was just a slow little progression and kind of chipping away at myself and my soul and everything as we went. He slowly would talk negatively about my friends and then had these guilt trips about, you hung out with this person more than me, and just these guilt trips and the constant, back when then we had pagers. So he'd page me and call me and just harass that way. And so it was almost easier not to have any friends. And I remember my 3 girlfriends were trying so desperately for me to see all of this. And they would talk to my parents and they talked to me. And again, I was in love with that Romeo and Juliet. Like, no, I'm going to pick him. Like, you're in the wrong and I'm going to side with him.
And I'll show you all. In the end, we'll be together. And
yes, that same. Yeah. My mom wanted to believe that he was good, and that's just her personality, almost to a fault. So she thought he was great. Maybe had some issues here and there, but she also knew his mother, so that made it a little bit harder for her, I think. My dad hated him from the beginning, so he was probably the wisest one to everything at the time.
It's got to be so hard, though, when your daughter is adamant about loving this person to, one, even say anything, because you have to help them, like, make their own mistakes. But then when it's someone that's this manipulative, I'm sure that's hard to balance. Did your dad say anything, or did he just like not interact with them?
Kind of both. But again, I was so headstrong that, like, this is who I'm picking and you can say whatever you want. And I was probably difficult teenager at that time about this, but just continued. So I think people tried to intervene. It just didn't sink into me. It didn't get into my head, I guess, at the time.
It's one of those things that you have to learn for yourself, and it has to get to a breaking point.
Yes.
Which it did. So keep going with the story. I'm sure a lot of people are at the edge of their seats.
We dated all through high school, and I had tried to break up with him a couple times. Like, I would see things myself, and so I would try to cut it off. And to say he wouldn't let me is kind of sounds silly, but he wouldn't let me. And he would show up at my mom's house, at my parents' house. He would go to her office because she worked there at the time at the high school, and cry to her and, oh, Jolene tried to break up with me and this, and just spin that emotional web around somebody else. So I tried, and then we would just get back together because, again, it was easier. It was easier not to have a fight. It was easier just to kind of brush it over and just not deal with that confrontation, I think, at the time.
So would you say it was more so controlling, emotionally abusive at this time throughout high school?
Yep. Yes.
And what's that like as far as your like crush on him, or how much you like him when you're in the midst of this, like through years? So, 15 to 18 in high school is a few years. Do you still like think he's cute and want time with him when he's like this? Or is it just like to keep the peace?
I feel like towards my end of my senior year, I had no friends left. Like, everyone had washed their hands of me because they had tried, and there was nothing more anyone could do. They had already tried, and I literally had no friends. And I'd walk to class, and I didn't have anybody. So I think he was all I had left. And he was kind of my comfort, and who I knew at the time, and who was there left for me.
And it was your world.
Yep.
I think looking back, it's probably so different, but in the moment, it's all you knew, and it's probably survival mode. If I don't want to piss him off, I don't have anyone.
Yep.
Like, thinking about being at that age too, it's probably so confusing.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and he's then out of high school, and you're a senior, so that had to be so lonely.
Totally.
How'd you get through that last year?
I don't know. Like I just, I remember going from class to class, and I would purposely go and get a coffee at the coffee shop and then go to the next class. And like, I try to keep myself busy or look like I was busy, but inside I was just trying to avoid people. Like, so.
Yeah. I'm sure you didn't even have the time or want to be still with how you felt.
Yep.
Because then all these emotions would have come up.
So what happens after high school?
So we continued to date. I wasn't ready to go on to like a 4-year college. I enrolled. I was going to go to college, but I wasn't ready to go away and sleep in a dorm. I just emotionally wasn't ready. I mean, looking back, I probably could have been ready, but with all of this, I wasn't ready to be on my own. And so I enrolled in a 2-year program. I got my associate's degree, and then there was a 4-year college. I went to school for elementary education, and it was like a remote program at that community college. So essentially I went there for 4 years and did my bachelor's degree at there. I also chose to work full-time, well, not full-time, but close to it to pay my way through college. So I didn't have scholarships or anything. So that was, I guess, a plus of staying at home. But we continued to date, and that was around, I was probably like 20. You know, everyone's getting, I won't say everyone, but a lot of people are now getting engaged and looking to be with somebody and, you know, kind of going the next step. And that's just what we did. Like, okay, well, that's the next step. That's what we should do too. Like, so we got engaged at 20, and I, you know, looking back, I'm like 20, like just a baby. But we had a 2-year engagement until I was done with college. That was my dad's like, you can be engaged, but this is going to be like, you're going to go finish college first.
He's like, please learn in 2 years.
Somebody else come along.
I know. Yeah. So, but no, like I just, again, I slowly started making friends, but they were like his friends or people that he liked. And so I had friends, but his group of friends, really.
He controlled who your friends were.
Yes, definitely. So we got married that summer after I graduated. He worked construction, and then it was 2005, it was hard to get a teaching job back then. Like there were no jobs, unlike now. And so I was a substitute teacher. I worked at a tutoring after school center. I did a lot of that to make money. I nannied here and there, but he would work construction, and he didn't really have a system for his money. He would pay himself first. And so he had all these workers or subcontractors that worked for him, and sometimes he couldn't pay them. Or he would buy a trailer or a piece of equipment and couldn't pay that person. And so it would be repossessed and just snowball effect. And we were borrowing money from both our parents, and, you know, you ask your parents this time and I'll ask my parents that time. And like, we shouldn't have been doing that, but you hit a wall and it's like, you can't ask anymore. We didn't pay our taxes at the time because we couldn't afford it, or he couldn't set aside money from his cash jobs. So that was another stress that was kind of lingering over us. I remember going to the grocery store and picking out groceries and writing a check. I'm like, I know we don't have money, but he gets paid on Friday and today's Wednesday. Like, we're just going to write it and hopefully it clears after that or something.
Oh,
and
that's so stressful.
I know. So we're standing there and they run the check and they decline it. And they say, you cannot buy food here. Like, we can't take another bad check from you, because we had done it so many times. So we had to walk away like with nothing. So we ate a lot of macaroni and cheese and grilled cheese and eggs and just kind of, I wouldn't say scraping by, but not well fed, not well rounded.
Yeah, and when you have that financial stress too, it's even more as far as emotional and how do I leave when I don't have the means to leave.
Yeah. And at that point, were you thinking about, like, when you guys were in this like financial hardship, this time where, you know, he's lying or not handling his money well, are you thinking of leaving him yet? Or is it still kind of like, no, like, I'm married to him now and I'm in it for the long haul type of thing?
Yep. Because that's like hardly anyone in my family is divorced. Like, you're married, you stay married and you work through it. And we had been together since we were 15. Like, we're going to continue. This is just a hard time and we're going to work through it, and it'll be better next time or next paycheck or next year. And, you know, it was always maybe next time it will be better.
It's such a good point, though, to bring up the relationships that you've had modeled in your life, and whether your parents are in a really healthy marriage or not, like the fact that they're still married means something to you, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so, unlike for me, my parents are divorced. And so for me, compared to some of my other friends, it's like more of an option for me. Not that I want to divorce my husband, but it's like easier for me to think about divorce than they are. Like, you don't want to be the first one in the family to get the divorce type of thing.
Yep. And I didn't want anybody to know that we were having issues, or we would fight. And I remember our cable would be shut off. And I remember I called the cable company because, lights were shut off, cable was shut off, and that was kind of the last straw. And I remember screaming on the phone, like, well, how do you expect me to watch TV? And as soon as I said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's so many more things that are important than that. But it was just one more thing to kind of push me over the edge. So we can't pay our bills. We can't, pay our grocery. And then his dad brings up, well, you guys should buy a house because that's what everybody else is doing. That's what the next step is. And I remember thinking like, why? Why would we buy a house? And we bought a house. Like, it was just, why? We just like, the train kept moving and I was just kind of watching it go by. Like, what are we doing? But that's what we did. We bought a house, beautiful, beautiful home in a small town. But we didn't have the, I guess the credit, obviously. So his dad was the co-signer. So now his dad is on this house. And now I remember thinking, well, what am I going to do if something happens to him? Like, his dad's name is on here, his dad's credit. Like, I can't afford like my teaching salary, my subbing salary to afford this house at all. I remember thinking that when we moved into the house. We would get in lots of fights, like just because we were stressed and young and didn't know how to manage our money. And I remember being so upset, like, we have another overdraft fee, or you didn't wear your seatbelt. Now we have another ticket to take care of. Like, we can't keep doing this. And I was kind of the crazy one. And, it's going to be okay. I'm going to get a next job. And it was kind of just stringing me along, I guess. Would be
like, you're a worrier.
Yeah,
quit worrying so much. Gaslight.
Yep.
Oh, that has to be so frustrating to feel like you're in the cycle you can't get out of.
But you also want these things. Like, I'm sure in the moment you're like, a house. Like, I did want this and I do want to be married.
Yeah.
And so after you had the house, where you still having issues with like paying for gas and electric and all that stuff too?
Yeah, we lived there and it was kind of like we got a clean slate in this new house. And so, but again, we couldn't pay. We always paid our mortgage because that was like the number one, because his dad was on the mortgage, like we had to. But our gas got shut off. And I remember having both our parents over, like our siblings. We were going to have a party. And it was like, we had to lie. Again, now I'm lying. And we would tell my dad, who knows everything about fixing things. I'm like, the gas isn't working. The stove is kind of broken. Like, don't worry about it. We'll just cook on the grill outside. It's no problem. Like, it was November. And just crazy things. And we would close the blinds and close the curtains to kind of keep the heat in, and open them up to kind of let the sun in, and then close them at night. But just stupid things that I should know how to do, or, kind of survival. We learned about the Minnesota cold weather rule. And that is, if you don't know, or if you never had to know, it's your gas can be shut off through like the summer, spring months. But as soon as winter comes on, they have to turn it back on for heat. So we were just waiting for the temperature to kind of drop for that to kick back on. And then we had gas and everything was fine. But meanwhile, we're just racking up these bills and can't pay our gas. And it's just crazy. So.
Okay, so you've asked your parents for money. You've borrowed a ton of money. Now he's on your house. How do you get out of this financial mess?
Well, we had already asked our parents. We had already done all the things that our resources, we kind of tapped them out. And so I remember hearing about, I had a cousin who was actually a stripper, a dancer, a long time ago. And then we had a friend who had a new girlfriend, and he was telling me about his new girlfriend who was a dancer, and she had all of this stuff, and she had a car, and she had all these clothes. And it was kind of like a light bulb went off in my brain, like, well, why can they do that, but I can't do that? Like, could I do that? And so kind of an idea was born. And so I researched like strip clubs near me. And there was one in the town, in the college town down the way. And so I researched where it was, how much each dance was, just the protocol of the whole thing. And so my plan was on my birthday, we were going to have a party, and I was going to go down and I was going to win the wet t-shirt contest. Like, I was headstrong, like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to win, and we're going to be okay. We're going to see how this goes.
Little trial run.
Yes. Like, everyone thought this was just a fun birthday, but I was like, this is what I'm doing. Like, we're going to try it out. So we did. We went down there, and since it was my birthday, I had my stage name of Cupcake. And like, literally, like, it was just this amazing feeling of like, you're on stage and the whole room is like cheering and standing up and throwing money at you. And I won, obviously, but I won.
But I love that you're in a white t-shirt right now.
Oh,
too.
yeah, right, yeah.
There's some mud on you.
But like, I was not to say motivated, but I was determined to win. Mm-hmm. And I did. Not like it's hard, but like, and so that was really my
Okay, it
idea.
might not be hard for you, but it'd be very hard for me to win a wet t-shirt contest. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, thanks. But so that was my
ticket.
idea, my ticket. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so I went down. We both went down the next Thursday because that's when tryouts were. So I was going to try out, and they recognized me, and they're like, "Are you Cupcake from a couple weekends ago or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh yeah." They're like, "You don't need to try out. Just start on Monday." I'm like, what? Like, start on Monday? Okay. So I was going to start on Monday.
Cupcake got the job.
I know, yeah. So that Monday, we both came back, and I signed up, and I had the stage name now of Haley. And I think I went into it so naive, because I have no idea about this world at all. Like, it's very much a culture of women and girls, and I had no idea. So I walk in all friendly and, "Hi, my name is," and it's not a friendly place, really. Oh. It can be, but they're not that welcoming, I think, to new.
Are you like competition?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was a new girl.
I take my money.
Yep.
Everybody likes the new girl.
I was just like, "Hi, what's your name?" Like, it's just naive, which probably worked in my favor and kind of shielded me a little bit. But it was also like a hardening of your soul. And I remember, because you go in and like, I just thought everybody was friends and everyone's nice. And when you're talking to all these different men and you ask for a dance or this, and they tell you no, over and over and over. Like, at the time, I remember just internalizing that, like, what's wrong with me? Why don't you like me? Am I, this or that? And it was just a thickening of my skin, a hardening of my soul over time.
Which was a good thing or a bad thing?
I think for that environment, a good thing. Mm-hmm. I've heard now, years later, people will meet me and they're like, "Why are you so hard? Why do you just," and I just have that shield, and I have that hardness that I can't totally let go.
What a vulnerable thing to put yourself out there. So you have hardly any clothes on. You're throwing yourself at someone for money, and they're saying no, of course. And then I'm thinking too of your husband at the time. So is he like coming in there? Is he okay with this? Like, is he like, "Do it, we need the money"? Like, what is he saying?
You said we. So did he come with you?
So this was also around like 2007 with the market crash. There was no construction jobs. There was no, like, literally for anybody. So he was out of work. And so again, I was going to save us and be his mother and take him in and, do everything. So we had like not like a pact, but we had an idea, and we had rules, I should say. Like, he was going to come with me, and he was going to kind of sit in the corner. And
every time you worked?
Every time I worked, he was going to come in, and we were going to kind of do it together. And he was going to be my safety net. And it's so, and that's probably why the girls didn't welcome me either. Like, "Why is your husband here? Like, why are you?" Yes. And so he was going to be my safety net and kind of help out. And, because I was his wife, and I don't know. So he was going to kind of coach me through. I never drank when I was dancing. In the beginning, I was very, like, our rule kind of, like, I was going to be very conservative, I would say. Like, I wasn't rubbing on anybody. It was just a topless club. I wasn't like, I was trying to be the most conservative I could as a dancer, I guess, without just losing my whole sense of being. So the rule was like, "Okay, you can talk to this customer at the table for one song, but then you need to, like, hurry it along and then ask for a dance. And if they don't want one, to get up, go to the next table." Like, it was like this robotic
you're here to make money and that's it.
Like, come on, like, yep, I was his puppet, kind of looking back. I was also not supposed to dance for anybody that was not white. So that was another rule. And I mean, that's kind of hard to do when someone walks in and like, what was I looked like a very rude person, I think, when I would just kind of skip over to the next table, but he was sitting right there. And there were several nights, like, we would drive home. And of course, I drove home after 9 hours of on my feet. And I was the one that drove back home. And he would grab, like, my shoulder, like my jacket or something, and just shake me while I'm driving and scream at me over and over, like, why did you do that? Like, just angry at breaking the rules. And so it was hard to follow the rules, but difficult not to follow the rules also.
Because of the repercussions.
So, yeah.
Did any of the girls that you worked with notice anything or catch on to just his controllingness? Or was it just kind of you stuck to yourself, didn't really have those close of relationships where they felt like they could have said something?
I think we all just kind of became friends, and like eventually the girls became like, good friends, and we were very close, and he was just part of it. And he kind of became a regular, kind of just became a fly on the wall, and just kind of the girls got to know him. And not really, I don't feel like it was, maybe, but not to my face. I think my good friend, one of my best friends, was probably the first person to ever say anything about it, because she knew what I was doing. She knew what was kind of happening. And she told me, or asked me, she's like, why isn't he working? Like, why are you doing all of this, but he's just sitting on his ass? Like, he could go push carts at Target. Like, why isn't he doing anything?
Yeah. Oh, that's so heavy. And I think about too, like, you are doing this for hours and hours and hours. So are you enjoying what you're doing at all? Or are you like, I want to go home, I hate this, or is it somewhere in the middle?
At first it was like a party. Like, it was fun and kind of exciting. And then I got good at it, and I could watch and I could just imitate, and I got to say good, but like, I just kind of blended right in. And I made friends with the girls and just had my own regulars, and just kind of, I learned that culture, and I learned how to do it, I guess. It was easy at first, but then it kind of got exhausting, because I was also working, like, by Friday, I would hit 60 hours, because now I'm working like 5 nights a week, 4 nights a week at the club. I was doing a before school program at 6:30 in the morning. So I get home at 2 o'clock, or like 3 really, get up, be at work at 6:30. And then sometimes I would substitute teach or teach preschool, and then go back to the club by 4. So it was just constant, like, I was exhausted. And I was starting to get bitter. Like, why am I paying for everything? And that was a point of contention, I think, between both of us too, just because I was tired of doing everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking too of your support of like, well, now you're married. So it's like, I don't think people are as concerned about your relationship, or like, like, is she going to be with this guy? Like, no, you're with this guy. So what happens with your relationship once you've been there for a while? Like, how does it progress from there?
It just kind of got worse in a way that, like, I thought my safety net was there, because he'd sit there and kind of watch. And then he kind of got used to the party, and we all he'd kind of go away sometimes. But I remember there was one night, and I was dancing for somebody right in front of him, and he grabbed me. And I remember I think I punched the guy in the face, and I was yelling at him, and he sat right there and didn't do anything. My safety net was not there anymore. So it kind of just got worse in a way of, we didn't really care about each other. He didn't care what was happening. It was just like, how much money did you make tonight? Can we make our mortgage? Can we get our gas? Can you pay for this for me? Like, it was more about the money than
transactional.
Yep.
What else was it like at home? What was that environment like? It sounds like it probably wasn't the safest environment.
Again, I feel like it was just, we just progressed, and things were very stressful. And again, it was all about money, and we had a lot of fights about money, a lot of fights, just, we weren't really a couple anymore. We didn't do anything together. We didn't enjoy each other, I don't feel like, anymore. And it did get physical in a way where I think he thought he was protecting me from myself, and kind of like that gaslighting again. We would, if I broke a rule or did something incorrect or wrong at the club, he would come home and it was like he would wait for these early or late night hours, early morning, and just like interrogate me over and over and over and ask the same question. And I remember him like over top of me in the bed, and he asked me something and I don't know what I said. And he took his fist and like punched the pillow right next to me. And it was just, he never hit me, but it was like gonna scare me enough. Because I also never not said my mind. I never not said my piece and what I wanted to say at the time. I didn't fear that, and I always stood up for myself. I think that's important to say, but it just was never good enough or wasn't okay. There was one night where I bought the wrong I thought I was buying laundry detergent, and I bought fabric softener for like the third time. Just a stupid mistake. Like,
they look the
dumb,
same.
I know. But like that set him off and that triggered him. And like, I think it was near Christmas, and just this interrogating, and you're so stupid and you're a fucking whore. And it escalated so much about fabric softener. And I remember him grabbing me and like pushing me down on the floor and like getting on top of me and trying to like hold me so that I wouldn't, I would calm down. And then after that, like my eyes were just like bloodshot, crying. And then we drove to Quick Trip, and he sent me in a Quick Trip. He's like, you can buy the right fabric softener or the right laundry detergent. And it's just like, I remember checking out with the guy at the Quick Trip, like, you must think I'm like the most pathetic girl. Like, here I am buying laundry detergent at Quick Trip. Like, my eyes are bloodshot. Like, I just look in a bad spot. Horrible. So it kind of escalated that way.
Yeah. What was going on in your head during this? Do you remember? Like, back to that girl of just in the midst of rules and not feeling like you had any agency over your life, it sounds like.
I remember feeling like if I can just kind of stay small and just kind of play by the rules and just kind of go under the radar and do what we need to do to pay our mortgage and just kind of slip by, like that would be okay. Like, don't piss him off, but I'm going to piss you off a little bit, but I'm not going to like really make you angry.
What happened? Like, what did you think in your head when he was calling you these terrible names?
I think I just got used to it. I remember not liking it. I remember feeling like you don't talk to your wife this way, like, at all. But
did you ever like believe what he was saying? Like, did you ever?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I also felt like a whore. Like, of course I was a whore because I was dancing and I felt that way. And so I think my self-esteem was so low that, like, yeah, like, I'm not that you're right, but probably was.
But then he like knew the right thing to say to like really make you feel like nothing. Like,
or to quiet you up.
Yep.
Because you're like, what can I say to that? You're not wrong.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Or like how stupid I was. Like, I'm not stupid. But maybe like I bought this incorrect fabric softener the third time. Like, maybe I am stupid. I'm not stupid, but just kind of you hear the same thing over and over again.
You start to believe it.
Yeah.
your brain's not working because you're so tired.
Exactly.
So you're making silly mistakes.
Physically, emotionally, just drained. Yes.
Well, and think of how exhausted your brain had to have been, not only being that tired, but like the mind game that you're playing, not only the mind game of trying to just do your job well and be strategic as a dancer, like, because that's a game in itself, with your husband watching you.
Yep.
And then not knowing if he's going to put his hands on you, what he's going to say to you, all of the money he's taking, that, like, your support system shot. Like, of course you make silly mistakes. You're exhausted.
Yep. I remember like dancing, but then like you said, you could see him in the corner, like just glaring at me. Like, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Was I supposed to do something else? Did I not? Like, just the constant, like, what did I do? Is he mad at me? Like, all the time.
Were you ever scared going home at the end of the night with him?
I wasn't, no. And later on, like, I should have been very scared, like, looking back, but I wasn't. I think, maybe I was just so, again, naive to it, but.
Or it's just that's your world.
Yep.
Like, you get used to it.
Yep.
And did the thought of leaving ever cross your mind? Like, I know you said, if I just stay small, it'll get better. Did you ever think of leaving?
I think I started, not necessarily leaving, but I remember telling myself, just stop, just shut down, like, stop. And it was when he kind of started hanging around a girl from the club, and, all of a sudden they were hanging around, and I was going back to school, going back to grad school at the time during all of this also.
Oh my God, Jolene.
I know.
Badass, this girl.
Wow.
Like, who needs sleep?
Oh my gosh.
But I would come home from class and they'd be hanging out, you know, they had slept till who knows what time, who knows what they were doing.
Like she was at your
And,
house?
Yeah, like she would spend days.
Oh,
like,
no.
and I remember begging him and like just crying, like, why is she here? Kick her out. Like, I don't want her here. And he wouldn't. And, oh, she's my friend. And she would call him her best friend. I'm like, he's supposed to be my best friend. Like, and it was just this shift. And I remember taking my dog to a walk and sitting at like a hockey rink and just sitting down, like, and telling myself, stop, like, just stop, just quit caring, stop everything you're doing, like, just shut down. And I did. Like, in that moment, I just stopped. I stopped loving, caring. I mean, I probably had already, but I told myself to stop.
Like you gave yourself permission in a way.
Kind of. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's powerful. Can you
Just got
like,
goosies.
I know, me too. Can you like feel yourself sitting there and like, what is it like to come to that conclusion finally when you know you've probably felt it, but like you're actually stopping?
I think it's like it goes back to being 15 when everybody tells you this and that and all these red flags, and it takes, everyone can tell you that, but until you see it and feel it and believe it, it's almost like a relief. I feel like, okay, like I see it now and I'm ready to acknowledge it and I can move on and I can do something about this versus what other people are telling me how to feel or what to do.
Was it like a shit, they were right? I just spent all this time, energy, went through all this abuse, and now look at me? Or was it like empowering of like, all right, I can do this, I can leave. I don't need to be here anymore.
Probably a little bit of both. And I think that's why I never said anything to anybody because I didn't want to be wrong. Because of all those years, you know, I chose him and he was going to be the one and I was wrong. And not necessarily of like they were right and I was wrong, but I was embarrassed for myself. I think I had let myself down.
Think of too the isolation of, like you're saying, you probably didn't tell anybody 90% of the shit that he did because you didn't want him to know how bad it was.
Yep.
Right? So I'm just thinking of that, like isolating on top of how your friends had left you alone. I bet you just felt so freaking alone.
How did you have the strength to get out? Sorry, spoiler alert.
No, I know. I think I told myself just stop. And so then it was just like, now the club became this addiction to me, like this. It was a numbing. It was a place I could go. I could be somebody else. I could just dance and listen to my music and kind of entertain other people, but like I could check out totally. I didn't have to be myself. I didn't have to be that girl married to that guy. Like I could be somebody totally different and party and have fun and just numbing. So I think I was seeking, like you said, I was very isolated emotionally, like just, I was so down, I think, beyond the words of down. But I had met somebody and started an affair with somebody, which I'm not proud of. I think I know I was wrong. And that's probably one of the biggest regrets I have. I know it hurt a lot of people in the process. You know, I don't have an excuse of why it happened or what was the reason. It doesn't really matter.
I can think of a few reasons
well,
why it's okay.
I know, but it's wrong, and I will own that myself. Yeah. But my moral compass was so fucked up, like, for almost 2 years. And I think I know that I was looking for some compassion, somebody, you know, anybody. And this man showed me attention, and it was, again, wrong, and I'll say that a million times over, but it was just a comfort, and it was somebody to listen and to kind of to carry me through this hard time. But I was also, it was like, what's that saying, jumping from the kettle into the, or from the frying pan into the fire? Like, it was not a good situation. And I was foolish to believe that he was honest or, you know, sincere. But I think subconsciously looking back, I was looking for a ticket out, and I was using him as a reason to help me get out, that I couldn't do myself, that I couldn't say or verbalize my own ending of my marriage. So I was going to bring somebody else in. And I didn't want it to be found out, obviously, because that's horrible. But maybe in a way I was and didn't know it at the time.
Did he find out?
Oh, yes. He found out. I think at the time he was starting to suspect, or he had a tracker on I'm gonna guess on my car or my phone or my computer, but he knew where I was. He knew like many things. I'm like, how did you know this without stalking me? Mm-hmm. So he did find out, and that night he found out it was a huge fight. Very big fight. And I remember that night, it was again with the interrogation, it was the physical scaring. And then he took a butcher knife from the kitchen and slid it underneath his pillow. And he was going to sleep with a butcher knife that night out of protection for me. But it was just one of those things like you just go through, because this has always kind of progressed into this. So again, I wasn't scared. I should have been. But again, I thought, well, I probably deserve this. Like, I did this. I made this huge mistake. Like, I don't deserve this, but I was in the wrong. So it had those emotions as well around that.
Oh, man. Wow. Okay. So first of all, how is the butcher knife protecting you? Like, what does he think he's like? Is this guy coming and he's going to protect you from this guy?
I think that was the story that he had said. Yes.
God, that's so scary. And it just shows too, like when you say the hardening of the soul, like he's done so much and said so much that it's like just progressed to this point where like a butcher knife isn't even scaring you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's wild. And I can't even imagine what every day must have been like for you to feel like that was a normal thing.
I know. When you look back, it's like, what? Or you say something now to someone and they're like, that is not okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yep. It is not okay. But that was what happened. Another situation, like he had also borrowed a shotgun from his friend. Again, I don't know what he was protecting, but it was meant to scare me. And he would position it in our closet. And I remember he had the bullets like hidden somewhere. And it was one of those things like I was going to throw the bullets away. I was going to try something like a child. Like I was going to try to save myself and at least throw the bullets away or do something.
I mean, I would have.
Exactly. But it was like he had such a scare tactic and this control that if I did anything, he would know. And so it was just this, I should have, and I tried to, but it was almost like I was more scared of what would happen if I did than if I didn't. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. I was going to ask, did you feel stuck?
Oh,
because of that?
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then moving on, like feeling stuck and just trapped. I remember I came home from school one day and he had boarded up the back door, like from the inside. Like there were 2x4s, like screwed into the wall. So a person couldn't get out the back door. He had changed the locks. His parents had helped him change the locks. So I didn't have a key to my own house.
That you were paying for all of
yeah,
this.
Right. Yes. Hid my birth control, and like he was going to trap me many different ways to try to keep me there. He would call all my friends that I had left and family and tell them everything that I had done. And really, I mean, my parents and nobody knew anything. And to hear all of this about your family member or your daughters, like it was hard to hear. And so it really pushed a wedge between, or he tried to push a wedge between my good friends, my family, and tell them how crazy and psychotic I was and bipolar. And he was very worried about me and my health. And he should probably connect me to a psychiatric ward and like just bizarre. But
they didn't know the other side of it.
Oh, no. He was wonderful. He was a very concerned husband. Yes. I mean, he would show up at one of my jobs or at college. He would send flowers and these gushy love letters. And I mean, he knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time he planned a surprise birthday party for me. And all my friends at school, I knew something was going on. And they're talking about it, and I finally just asked him, like, is he planning a surprise party? Because it was just, like, one more thing to show the whole world how wonderful he was. And I told him, like, don't come. Like, we're not having a party. We are not in a good place. Like, I may not be there. Like, don't come. And so they were surprised to hear that because he came across as this great guy and this wonderful husband at the time.
So you tell yourself, stop. He knows now about your affair. You know that he has someone that something's probably going on.
I know, like if you have suspicions, like
yeah. So how does this go down? How do you get the hell out of there?
So I mean, this has gone on for 4 months. Like we were in couples therapy. We were actually told not to come back to couples therapy, and it just like we weren't in a good place, and I was trapped in my own home. And I remember going to my basement and thinking like, okay, I need to get out of here, but no one can know. And what am I going to take with me? And just looking at the sea of materialistic things. Like if I need to leave, what's actually important? Like I can get another one of that. I don't need this. Like do I really need all this stuff? And so I picked a couple different things that I thought were important. And when he was away, I had packed him already in bins. And I remember putting him in my car and driving like 80 miles an hour up to my mom's house, dropping him off, like really not saying anything. And I just showed up with these bins and rushed back home. And so I did that maybe 2 nights, 3 nights, like kind of under the radar, because I didn't want anybody to know. I had some things I wanted. And I remember one night we were laying there, and every night I was like, okay, this could be the night. Like, but it can't be tonight because I still have, my clothes, and I have some last minute things to pack up and really save before I actually get out. And I remember we were laying there in bed trying to sleep. And again, now it's about time where we're going to do the interrogations again. And it's like, and I would position my car keys behind a frame on my nightstand and my phone. And I would also position my like purse and my shoes by the front door. Like I had it all in my head, like my route. And so again, we're laying there, and he starts in with the questioning and the poor me, and I just want to be a loving husband, and why can't you love me? And I'm trying so hard, and I just want to, and he rattled off all the things that I had wanted him to do for the last couple of years. And I was trying to play it cool because I still had a couple of things left to get out. And like laying there, and he finally just pissed me off. And I don't know who this girl was. Like listening to myself just get so angry and bite back and like ferocious, just calling him out on everything. And that was like, okay, we're doing this. This is happening tonight. It's done. Like we're done. Like, here we go. And I remember he was like, then get out of here, like you leave. And so I grabbed my keys and put them like wrapped around my middle finger, grabbed my phone, and I was going to leave and tried to rush out the hallway. Well, he grabbed me and pulled me up, and like I was off the floor. And now he's got me above him, like pinned up against the wall in the hallway, and I'm kicking and like as hard as I can. He's not that strong, but he's big. And I remember kicking, and I finally got free, ran down the stairs, like I had my route, I knew what I was going to grab, and I got into the front yard, and my car was right there. And as soon as I got to the front, he grabbed my arm again, and this is where it gets probably the most physical, but he grabs my arm again, and like, I don't remember how it went, but like he was like almost hitting me or trying to hit me or protect me, and knocked my phone out into the grass at like 2 a.m. Like, now I have no lifeline at all. And I remember feeling that's when I'm alone. This is like now I have nobody. Like I can't call anybody. And you kind of hope like, okay, is a neighbor hearing? Like anybody? Like, and nobody did. Like it was a quiet little town.
Were you like screaming like loud?
Oh,
like someone should have heard?
Yes. Okay. We were in a very deep verbal, physical fight. Like, I don't know how you would not hear like down the street. And so this happens, and I remember he was trying to calm me down and hold me, and I was the crazy one. And he told me to get my things and leave. And I remember looking like between the house and my car. And I went back into the house. I'm like, why did you do that? But I went back into the house and grabbed some things and had about 2 or 3 trips back and forth, put it in my car, lock my car, go back up, get another one, back and forth.
What was he doing during this?
He was on the phone with first his mom, and what a crazy bitch I am, and she's lost it, mom, and I can't believe, such and such, and just like
calling his mom at 2 a.m.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So then one of the trips, I'm like, well, I don't have time to listen to this. Like, I got to get my stuff out of here. And then I hear my mom on the other line. Oh. And like, I hear my mom. I'm like, that's my mom. Like, she's going to come and save me. And we got in like I went back upstairs. I'm like, okay, my mom is coming. Sorry.
It's okay. Don't be sorry.
So I went back upstairs to get more things, and he got mad about something, and he was determined to take my ring. And I remember he got on top of me, and like again, I have my keys on my finger, like digging into my palms, and he's trying to rip it off of me. And just, it was that, again, more that physical fight, and I got him off and pushed him off and kneed him somehow and got off. And then I went down the stairs and my mom was there. And like to this day, it's just like my mom came. My mom knew she was there 2 a.m. Like she came and got me. That was kind of how I got out of that last night.
Shout out, Mama.
I know.
God bless her.
Man, and you sound like a strong ass woman to get this huge ass dude lifting you up and ripping your body. Like the fact that you got away from him is so powerful. Like just to think of that moment, I can't even imagine like reliving that and thinking about, like, it must have just been like all of that internal like angst that just came out and got you away from him. Wow.
Yes, and I think you don't really know what you're capable of, probably physically, emotionally, like everything, until it's like fight or flight, and
Your life's
you
on
fight.
the line.
Yep.
What emotions are coming up for you right now?
I just won't talk about my mom, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad she came. So how far away did she live from where you live?
It was probably like a half hour drive. So
this was going on for a while then, after she hung up the phone.
yep. But again, nobody heard, it was just like one of those, you pray for somebody to call or walk by or anything.
It's like a scary movie. Like the phone
Right.
is in the grass and it's dark and you can't see it. And then you're like, well, what am I going to do? Like I need my phone.
So what happened when you looked up and your mom was there?
I kind of don't remember, but I remember it was like I left my car there.
Relief.
Yep. And it was like, okay, I'm going to get in this car. We're driving away. And it was just, like, again, one of those movies where it's like you see the house getting further and further, and it was just this relief.
Wow. So then you still have a job, you're still in school, and you have to keep living your life with all this going on. Does he leave you alone?
No, it gets worse, because when you try to leave, like, he wasn't going to let me leave. And so I had to change my number because he would call or text like hundreds of times within like a minute, it seemed like. He would sit and position his truck on one of the roads that I had to drive by each day to college, and he would sit and he knew where I was. He would come on campus and show up. I remember sitting in a meeting with one of my groups, and he's like literally peering through the window. And people are like, who is that? I'm like, oh my God. And just like that kind of thing. And again, the flowers and the cards and he's just really trying to get me back. And we did have another physical fight and like a verbal fight on campus. And again, he showed up, and I got upset with him, and I called him out and like, you cannot do this. And he would come, and like we were fighting down the sidewalk, and everyone just walked by, and he didn't want to get in our business probably. Like nobody like checked in, nobody did anything.
So for someone listening right now,
Please help.
right?
Just check in. Yeah.
Or even if you see something and you're like, that's none of my business, what would you say? Make it your business?
I think just intervene.
Like, is everything okay here?
Yep. And then she's going to say, oh, yep, it is, because that's going to ruffle more feathers. But grab a security guard, like call somebody of authority, anything.
Do something.
Yep.
So how long did this go on for then? You leave, but he's coming back.
Yep. It probably went on a couple months. I'm trying to remember. So I remember my friend gave me a business card of a lawyer, and that was the friend originally who had said, this is off, like you shouldn't be doing all this, that friend. And she handed me, yep. She handed me the business card of a divorce lawyer. And that was, you had this in your hand, like, this is now who I am. Like, I'm getting divorced. Like, what? But it needed to happen, and I reached out to him, and again, throughout this time, I was kind of trying to win things over and kind of smooth things over so that he would maybe sign the divorce papers. And so, yeah, maybe I would go have dinner with him, or I'd have lunch, or just trying to keep the peace enough, which was never enough, ever. And my divorce lawyer finally said, stop. Like, you're not going to talk to him anymore. You're not going to see him. You're not going to, not that I wanted to, but I was trying to kind of string things along to end it. And he was the one that told me to stop giving in, I guess.
When you have all your stuff still in that house that I'm sure you want, like, I know, like you said, it's material things, but it's still your stuff, like that you've bought and had, you know, throughout your childhood probably, and want back. Like, were you able to, like, did you ever go back to the house to get things, or were you just like, I'm staying away?
There were a couple times, I think, in the beginning. And I remember he had, I don't know what it even was now, obviously not important, or wasn't important. And he would tell me that I could come at this time to come pick it up, and he'd set it outside, and I would bring my mom with me. And I remember just being so angry, like my whole body was tense, like my lower back was just like this. I've never been so angry that your body hurts. But I'd bring her with me, and we'd maybe go get a couple things. And then it was like one of those, oh, just come and I have a couple extra Christmas ornaments from when you were, like, from my childhood. But it was like, I can't keep doing this game. I'm not going to get them. Like, I have to leave those behind, and it's sorry, but they're not that important to me to go through with that and go pick it up, or like, go through that mental stress. So they stayed, or who knows what happened, but
yeah. You mentioned your mom. She clearly is an integral part of this story. I'm curious what other support you had. Like, who did you lean on during this time? Did you internalize a lot of this? Was there self-help therapy? Like, how did you get to where you are now, being successful and a mother, and your energy? You know, you've clearly been through some things. So how did you get through it?
I remember I knew I needed therapy so badly, but it was expensive, and I couldn't afford therapy. Like, now I'm not working. Now I'm just going to grad school and finishing my program, and I don't have time to work, and I can't go back to dancing because now my brother knows, and I can't, you know, like, I can't, my brother wouldn't have let me gone back. Like, there's no reason. And so I have no job, no money, and I can't afford therapy. So I start writing, and I have a journal, and that helps me get my feelings out. I probably drank too much just to kind of numb my feelings. I had a couple friends that I would talk to, but again, it's one of those, you start telling your story and their faces just drop, like, what? And so it got weird to talk to somebody. And nobody really understood. Nobody has been through, like, the magnitude or the particular situation that related to me at the time. I mean, there's friends that have, but not in that way.
Yeah.
So it was hard to relate to somebody.
And I'm sure every abuse story is different, and you understand bits and pieces, but like anything in life, it's your story. Oh, it's so tough.
I'm just curious what this looks like. So you get a divorce, and then you're like eventually going to start to date someone else. How do you even trust, or even like get into that process of bringing another male into your life?
Yeah, I think for a long time I had no trust for men, and was just so skewed by men that I knew at the club, by my ex-husband, by just the men that I knew that I had recently known, I guess, were wrong to me. So I didn't trust any men. But I knew that I couldn't start dating until I was whole myself. And I needed to, I guess I don't know when that would have been, but like, I knew that I couldn't really be serious about someone until I was whole. And I remember my aunt, when I first was divorced, she said, Jolene, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to pray that you get a wonderful husband. And I remember thinking, like, can you just pray for me? Like, I don't want a husband. Like, pray for me, please. And so I needed to become whole and just kind of work through my own emotions before I introduced anybody into my life. And I think when I kind of started to dabble in dating, like I probably scared a lot of men away. Like just, I don't know. I also felt like I had these big scarlet letters across me too, like divorced, stripper, like all these things that were like not red flags, but like kind of knocks against me. And so I remember dating or going on Match.com, or my father-in-law now will call it www.imlonely.com. And so I went on there, but I liked it because I could just scroll through people's profiles like, oh, you're not married? Good. Oh, you have a job? Good. Oh, like just things that were like the basics, right? And that's when I met Ray, my husband now, at the time. And I remember going on our first date, and because of my past, like I didn't want him to think anything different of me. So I wore this turtleneck like up to here. Like I didn't want him looking at my body. I didn't want and it worked out, but just silly, purposeful things that I did coming from where I had been that I didn't want to repeat in my future.
That's awesome that you created some standards for yourself of like, I'm going to be intentional with what I'm doing and take my time for when I'm ready. I feel like I have some agency over who's going to be in my circle and what their circumstances are. So what was that like getting into your relationship with Ray after all that you had been through? Like, how did that affect the way that you had discussions about money or relationships with other people, or how he was allowed to talk to you? You know, I'm just thinking of starting up a serious relationship after all that you've been through. What was that like?
I think, yeah, exactly. Like hard to navigate. Like, do I scare him off and tell him everything right off the bat, or like, do I ease into it? And I know I needed somebody that didn't care, or it wasn't an issue. And I remember first telling him about a few things here and there, kind of surface level, and he just wasn't bothered by it, or he kind of reacted and told me something about him, or like it never scared him. So I was also like, well, I can't scare you away. Like, okay, well, maybe you will be around for a while. And I think with now our relationship with money, like we bought a house, obviously, like 5 or 6 years ago now. And I remember thinking and saying, like, let's just buy a house that one of us can afford, not above our means, so that we're both paying for this house, but financially, like, I couldn't do that again. Like, and not necessarily that this is going to happen again, but like, what if one of us loses our job or something happens, or like, I didn't want that to be a stress again. So I think financially that is something that I've brought up again. I'm very protective of some of my possessions because at the time I didn't have any. And I loosened up on that now. But like at the time, it's like, I only have this one couch, and he'll laugh and he's like, this not even a nice couch. But at the time, like I had bought it and it was like the first couch I ever bought for my new apartment. And now it's gone and like totaled. But at the time I was like, this is my couch. Like, but that was like one thing I had.
That's what it symbolized.
So exactly. And it symbolized like when my first apartment, I bought my own. It was my own by myself. And that was a big deal. So it was more than a couch to me. But,
it was your freedom.
Yeah.
But you can do this alone and be okay.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, for someone listening who maybe is still in a rough situation or just got out of one, what would you say to her?
I would say confide in somebody, one person, kind of have a plan with that person. And, you know, I mean, I'm thinking the materialistic things, like, can I store this stuff at your house? Can you take this for me? Somebody to maybe check in on you at 2 a.m, or just kind of have a code word or a check-in, and then know that if I don't call you at this time, or, you know, that I don't give you the code word, or like you come check on me. But just have that person to be your friend and kind of know what's going on without judgment.
Yeah, I love that. I think even if you're not in an abusive situation, right? Always having that one person that if things go bad or unexpectedly, you have that understanding of, I got you, you got me.
Yeah. And two, I think, you know, people have their beliefs about marriage and this, you know, like you should fight for your marriage and you should fight for, you know, like maybe choosing somebody else that's not going to make you feel bad about leaving a marriage, right? Because some people are really firm about that, and knowing like you need someone that is going to believe you and that's going to be like, I don't care. Like, I just want you to feel safe. I think sometimes there's like that judgment. So you're afraid to tell your friends about, you know, the struggle. And it's so important to know like that there's people that are just going to take that judgment and push it aside and just no questions asked. You don't even have to explain anything to me, but like you can have a room, you can have a bed, you can come anytime. Thank you, Jolene, for sharing all of this. I feel like walking through everything you went through was probably super hard, but I feel like, you know, you can see yourself in these moments, like what would I do and how would I feel? And I don't think we can ever truly understand all that you went through and all that was said to you. And my heart breaks for you with, you know, when you're talking about the hardening of your soul, like it just is so terrible that he did that to you and all that you've experienced. But I'm just so proud of you for pushing through that and leaning on your mom and getting the hell out of there and listening to that voice that finally made it stop. So thank you for sharing that and being on Ivy Unleashed so that other women and men can hear that you can get out.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
And now it's time to hear more from you with your 3 gold stars, your 3 takeaways for our listeners.
I would say, don't ignore those red flags and trust your gut. If something's wrong or it doesn't feel right, it's not right. And just really trust yourself. My second one is you're stronger than you think. So just keep that in mind. And then love yourself enough to stand up for yourself because you're the only one that can do it in the best way. No one else is going to do it for you. You need to love yourself to really, truly stand up for yourself.
God, those might have been the best 3 gold stars. So good. So good. All right, and more from you. This is Unleashing Ivy. So these are our 3 rapid fire questions. Surprise questions.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Mine has to do with being a mom, of course. I just, you have a beautiful daughter and son, and I'm just thinking of your story and them and how does this affect you as a parent now and how you'll parent them as they get older?
I know that it bleeds through in ways I don't realize at the time, but lying is one thing that like my kids do not get away with. And I am very hard on, like, you're not going to lie about taking that candy. I saw you like, and I also need to control myself of like, it's just a little simple lie. But I also go off the deep end of like, but it starts off this way and pretty soon like, and so I have to control, I guess, where I think things are going. But just, I don't tolerate lying. And I teach to be truthful with my children. I also teach both of them, you stand up for your big girl self and your big boy self. Like I started at daycare when they were 18 months old and someone pulled their hair. I'm like, well, what did you say? This is what you should do. And did you stand up for yourself? And I remember my daughter, she was 2, telling me something. And she goes, but mommy, I stand up for my big girl self. And I was like, yes, my girl. Like, and that's, I guess, how I'm raising them as a mom and going through this and kind of ingraining that you stand up for yourself and you love yourself and you look out for yourself and you say what's wrong or how you feel. I think that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, because you hear us so many times as a little kid, like, be a good girl, be a good girl. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And it's like conditioning us. My dad used to say that to me, like, love you, Dad. That's,
I know.
But it's true. Like, you do need to stand up for yourself, even if it looks ugly and angry and it's the right thing to do. Like, you need to protect yourself. I love that.
Yeah. My question is around your mental health now and how you prioritize you and being in this healthy mindset after everything you've been through with all of your, with everything you're juggling with being a mom and a business owner. Awesome things, but takes a lot of your time. So what do your self-care practices look like?
I think at first coming out of this, it was like I was seeking negativity and I only knew negativity and I knew like high stressful situations. So I was seeking those out and I've calmed down and realized what's healthy, what's not. And I've cut a lot of people out of my life that are not serving a good purpose in many ways and not in a mean way, cut them out, but like I don't have time for people that are going to hurt my soul or going to cause stress or anxiety or just be a drain. And whether it's a family member or a friend, or like, I can't do that, and I can't be in that position. So I have distanced myself from people that are negative or bring up past situations or just spark anger or things that are not going to be good for my mental health.
I love that. You're in control of who you surround yourself with.
Yes, very much. Yep.
Protecting your energy, especially when you have kids. It's so important because again, nice girl, they're family, they're friends, they've been around forever, but it's like, you know what? If it's not good for your energy or your families, it's not worth it.
Yep, exactly.
All right. And last question. What's one thing you wish you would have known sooner?
Going back to like what we hear as little girls, like, so-and-so pulls your hair on the playground or pushes you over, that he doesn't like you because he's doing that. And I hear that all the time with my dad just said it to my son. Oh, she probably liked you. I'm like, no, that's not why this happened on the playground with him and another little girl. Like, I guess I wish I knew how to stand up for myself as a little girl, or boundaries of what's okay and what's not, and how to verbalize to another child or an adult that I don't like something. So I think I wish I would have known how to have that strength, I guess, or taught what words to say in the beginning.
It's just funny because aren't you a speech pathologist?
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, your kids, and Ray, of course, very blessed to have you. I feel like you're going to raise some strong kids that are going to know how to say what's okay and what's not okay.
Yes, that's our hope. Yes.
Well, thank you again for being here, for sharing your message, inspiring everyone listening.
Thank you for having me. Yes, thank you.
And last up, we leave our listeners with a piece of gold. Would you like to share yours?
A quote that really had stuck with me and carried me through all of this was, just when the caterpillar thought her world was over, she became a butterfly. And it's very true.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.